Being able to gather information during an SHTF scenario could be extremely beneficial, especially in the beginning of an emergency. But a lot of people lack the capability to be able to do so even at a rudimentary level. So I put together a list of 5 preps for under $100 that could help you gather basic information for those types of situations. And hopefully this helps you when it comes to at least acquiring information during the onslaught of an emergency and then using it to your advantage to strategically plan your reaction thereafter. Now I do want to mention that Midway USA is the biggest supporter of the channel, and thanks to them I can put out videos like this one, which hopefully helps you get better prepared, and it also helps me by doing the research and getting better prepared myself. So big thanks to Midway USA. Now the first item on this list is going to be kind of silly to some of you because you're going to think that it seems very basic, but you'll be surprised how many people are lacking this capability. And that first item is going to be an HD TV antenna. Now, why would you need that? And real quick, I want to mention that I'll have links to all these items down below in the description as well as in the pinned comment. And even though I'm going to reference specific items in this video, you might want to look around and make sure that there aren't other similar items that would be better suited for the roles you require. So just keep that in mind as we go through this. Now, the amplified HD TV antenna I'm referring to has a 780-mile extended range and only costs $56. And that's something that you should think about because most Americans have moved over to streaming services only. And that's understandable, but it's also detrimental when it comes to actually receiving emergency broadcasts. It's very detrimental when it comes to receiving local information. And you have to assume that during a large-scale emergency, your local news networks will still be trying to put out information to a degree until maybe they're no longer able to do so. And this could also be beneficial in other ways when it comes to receiving enemy information, like the propaganda broadcast you might have seen in Red Dawn, right? Well, even though it's propaganda and it's supposed to be basically bad for you to digest, you can still learn from it and get information from it in order to better plan what you're going to do next. So keep all those things in mind as to why TV might still be a good option. It's still something the government sees as a valuable source of spreading information. And do you even have access to that information if things really were to fall apart? A good question to ask yourself, and if you don't have an antenna for your TV, you might want to look into something like this one due to the fact that it's not very expensive and it has a really high extended range of 780 miles. So the second thing on this list, right? And I told you that was rudimentary, but this one is a little bit more advanced and makes a little bit more sense, okay? The second thing on this list is going to be the Ratty RF760 receiver. Now, this is a radio receiver, which is a full band receiver. And what that means is that it can get every band that's out there. So you have your AM, your FM, your shortwave, you have all your ham bands, you have your CB bands, you have your NOAA weather bands, you have everything accessible on this one unit for $99.99. So almost $100, pretty much $100, but it's still technically under $100. Now, what's really cool about this unit is that it's rechargeable, which is nice, of course, and it comes with a 9.7-foot wire antenna, which allows you to really extend the range regardless of where you are. And because it's portable, it definitely gives you access to it no matter where you are. So if you had to bug out for an emergency, you can still have this with you, and you can monitor the airwaves for any other information that might be coming through that you might not have access to otherwise. And what's nice about these receivers is that you're not able to transmit, which means you don't need to be licensed to use them because you're not going to be transmitting at all. But you can receive information from all of the bands you can think of, and it's not very expensive for giving you that capability. So I think this would be a really good way to gather information, especially during an emergency situation. And if you don't really necessarily need or have the credentials required to broadcast or transmit, then you're good to go in the sense of at least listening in to see what might be happening nearby. And what's also nice about this is that because you don't transmit, it's not something that's going to necessarily give away your location like an actual walkie-talkie could. So keep all those things in mind, but I think this is a great way to get information because of how many bandwidths it allows you to access. Now, or bands. I don't know why I said bandwidths. We're fine here. Anyway, if you're listening into these things, right, you might need to understand what is being said. What do I mean by that? Well, we know that there is a high chance of enemy combatants already being here in the United States. And we all know that that might mean they aren't necessarily English speaking, right? So the third item on this list is going to be the HasLed translation device. But there's lots of translation devices out there, and you might have to figure out which one works best for you based on the fact that you might have certain languages you're more concerned about, or you want online or offline capabilities. There's a whole litany of different things that these translators bring into the equation. Now, this specific one, the HasLed, is $75, and it does have some offline support, which I find to be beneficial in the sense of being able to not worry about being connected to the internet or anything and still being able to translate from multiple different languages. And some of those languages include Chinese or Russian, and you can see how some of that could be very viable moving forward. But here's the other thing I want you to consider about translators. First off, you're going to say, well, what about my smartphone? I can just download an app and get it for free, basically, right? Well, what's nice about a translator is it's specifically designed for that task. So it's actually better at doing it in the sense of real time, and it doesn't necessarily give away your position or anything like that. So if you needed to bring it along with you while you're monitoring these airwaves with your ratty RF760 receiver, well, you're not going to have some GPS locator pinpointing your location every time you open up that app, right? You don't want to bring your phone to a lot of these different scenarios we're discussing. And in fact, your phone might not be usable for one reason or another, whereas this translator allows you to separate that functionality. So that's one of the reasons why you might want this over just using your phone. And another thing to keep in mind is that because it's purpose built for this task, there isn't any fiddling around or trying to get to the right app or any of that kind of stuff. When you need it, you can just get it done really quickly, and you're not going to miss out on a transmission or something that you otherwise could have been listening into. Now, there are lots of languages that these are capable of, but you generally have to be connected to the internet for them to work in the largest capacity. In offline modes, they generally only offer anywhere from like 10 to 17 different languages. And you have to decide what languages are going to be most important to you, especially based on your locale. But there are other translators out there that are much more expensive. For example, the Vasco V4 is a $400 translator, but it comes with a lifetime 4G networking program that allows you to access the internet no matter where you are for the most part, and gives you all of the translation capability anytime, any place. But you're still spending $400, and that's a lot more money to shell out. So you have to decide what's more important to you. But if I'm scanning airwaves and some foreign language starts to come through, I might want the ability to be able to understand what it says. And that's something you should definitely consider, especially based on recent events, okay? So I do also need to mention that Genesis Gold Group is a big supporter of the channel. And if you're worried about making sure your wealth is stabilized during these trying times, check them out at magicpreppergold.com, because they might be able to help you stabilize some of your assets with precious metals. And they can help you roll your retirement accounts into a gold-backed IRA. They can help you with physical precious metals being delivered right to your door. It's whatever it is you're looking for, they can probably help you out with. So make sure you check them out and tell them Magic Prepper sent you, of course. But here's the big thing. They don't offer free silver or anything like that, and they also don't work with the CCP, and they don't do anything that a lot of these other companies claim to do, because nothing's free in this life. And I just want you to be aware of the fact that they just don't operate in that fashion, because it's not a bait and switch. It's legitimately just them trying to help you stabilize your wealth. So magicpreppergold.com will get you there, and I appreciate that support, because you get silver and gold and I get lead and brass. Anyway, moving forward from there, the fourth thing on this list, okay? If you're going to, let's just say, listen in to conversations or get broadcasts on your TV, or you're hearing someone in a foreign language talk about where they might be located or where they're heading in some kind of a, let's just call it an attack parameter, okay? Well, you might need to know how far away they are, or you might need to know how far away the emergency is, or you might need to know what routes people might be most likely taking to get to that next destination. And in order to have that ability, you might want something as simple as the National Geographic Road Atlas map of the USA. And their Adventure Atlas covers just about every road system in the country and shows you some key marker locations, but it also has infrastructure, which could be extremely vital during these situations. It's $25, and it gives you railroads, it gives you all the bridges and everything else you might have to be concerned about during an SHTF scenario. And then understanding how far away some of these major hubs of transportation or logistics are from you or from your locale might give you a good idea as what to expect in the near future. Not to mention, if someone is trying to plan some sort of an attack and you're catching this information on what other gathering device you're using, well, now you might be able to actually write out or build out a timeline based on that information because you can see on the map just how far away they are from the perceived target, right? So having these maps that are on a national level might not seem realistic in the sense of what you have to do locally, but it will give you a lot of information to work with. And especially when we're talking about our infrastructure, you might want to pay attention to that and be aware of where these different points might be on the map in order to understand how close they are to you in the sense of how it will affect you and how quickly. So make sure you grab one of these road atlas maps. Look, the one thing they're lacking that's not going to help you in like a bug out situation is topographic information. And that's, part of the deal. It's like, what do you want? Topographic maps, or do you want an atlas of all of the roadways and rail systems and everything else in the country? These are things that you have to compromise on sometimes, right? But if you do need topographic maps for your location or for your bug out route or whatever it's going to be, then check out the link I'll put down in the description as well as in the pinned comment for a free topographic map generator that's provided by the US Geological Service. And basically, you go on there, you click in a certain area of where you want to get maps from, and then it tells you what's available, and then you can just download that in like a JPEG format and then print it out or whatever you want to do with it. So that'll help you get that information, which is also beneficial in case you figure out somebody's moving on foot one way or the other and they're going through some rough terrain. Now you can build out how that timeline looks a little bit more in detail, right? So the fifth thing on this list, and the reason I'm putting it on the list is because sometimes if you're gathering information, you might be having information gathered on you as well, if that's the kind of situation we're talking about, right? And you might need to gather information about who you can trust or what's happening locally, right? What do I mean by that? Well, here's the thing. The Ballistol hidden camera detector is $37. And there's a lot of other ones out there, so look around if you want. But this one had good reviews at least, right? Here's the thing. This thing will detect cameras that are hidden. It will detect GPS locators or trackers. It'll detect RF signals. It will detect if your phone is bugged. It'll detect all those little spyware style devices that might be being used against you. How do you know that you didn't make a trip into town to show up obligatorily to the ration line in order not to give away the fact that you don't need your rations, and then maybe your vehicle or whatever it was you used to get there with was hit with a tracker? Because, maybe they need to know where you're from, or maybe they have a feeling you have a little bit more going on than what you're letting on. And now this tracker leads them right back to your home. How do you know that you don't have a group that you're working with in the sense of like a mutual assistance group, and you guys meet at the same place, once a week or once a month or whatever it is? And how do you know somebody in there is not like a Fed or not somebody who's trying to sabotage the group and doesn't have bugs or cameras or something implanted in those meeting spots in order to surveil your activity? These are all things that you should expect during a fifth generation warfare SHTF type scenario. And if you're occupied in any way, shape, or form, and anyone can be an occupier, even the federal government. I don't know why I would say that. But what I'm trying to say is that there's a good chance that you'll be surveilled in one form or fashion. And you might want to have at least some capability as to figuring out if you're being tracked to a certain degree. And if there's hidden cameras in your home or hidden cameras in your meeting location or your vehicle suddenly has a GPS tracker on it, it'd be nice to be able to know that. And counterintelligence is always part of the game if any intelligence is happening, right? So you have to anticipate that somebody's going to use their information gathering devices against you. So you might as well be able to protect yourself. But this also gathers information for you. And why does that make sense? Well, because if you know somebody's placing cameras at your meeting location or somebody's tracking your vehicle, now you know just how close you are to the people that you're concerned about. And you know just how kinetic this whole situation is likely becoming because people are physically planting tracking devices on your property and trying to figure out more about your life, which should definitely raise some red flags. So that's a lot of information you suddenly receive just by finding something like that, I don't know, in your living room. So hopefully this list gave you something to think about. And like I said, everything's under $100, unless you want to go big and get something like the Vasco V4 Translator, which has a lifetime 4G SIM card plan attached to it for $400, but lets you translate anywhere in the world for the most part. There's a few places it won't let you in. Who knows why? But what I'm trying to say is that you can always spend more. You can always get a more detailed map system for the road atlas and everything else in the country for more than $25. But if you want the bare minimum that'll allow you to get the information you want from something like that, then $25 ain't so bad. And this all goes full circle to even the TV antenna. Your TV is capable of receiving that information, but without the proper equipment, you probably aren't receiving it. So if you want to at least have emergency broadcast sent to your TV, you probably need that capability. And with everybody moving over to streaming services and smart TVs, most people just don't realize they don't even have that capability at this point. So hopefully this gave you some things to think about. Let me know in the comments below if you want to add anything else to this list, or if you think that there are other items we should explore in the future. I'm doing my best here to give people base level information, but some videos are going to be advanced and some videos might even get up to the point of expert level, which I don't consider myself to be, but that's why I try to bring guests on this show once in a while in order to get that level of expertise, because I personally don't have it. So anything else you need from me, go to magicprepper.com. And besides that, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.